Jake Morrison stared out the small window of the human shuttle as it approached the massive alien ship. The vessel was bigger than anything he had ever seen. It stretched for miles in every direction, its dark metal surface covered with strange symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. Jake had been Earth's top diplomat for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Sir, we're about to dock," said Lieutenant Sam Rivers from the pilot's seat. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. They all felt it. This was humanity's first real contact with aliens, and it was not going the way anyone had hoped. The shuttle shook slightly as it connected to the alien docking bay. Through the window, Jake could see the massive space around them. Hundreds of smaller ships moved in perfect formation, their lights blinking in patterns that hurt to look at for too long. Everything was so clean, so organized, so utterly foreign. "Remember," Jake said to his small team, "we're here to talk. Whatever they want, we listen first. Earth is counting on us." Dr. Mary Johnson, Earth's leading expert on alien technology, nodded nervously. She had studied every piece of information they had about these visitors, which was almost nothing. Captain Lisa Hayes stood beside her, representing Earth's military forces. Her hand rested on her weapon, though they all knew it would be useless. Here, the airlock opened with a soft hiss. The air that flowed in was breathable but smelled strange, like metal and something else Jake couldn't identify. 3 figures waited for them in the corridor beyond. They were tall, much taller than humans, with scaled skin that shimmered green and gold. Their eyes were large and completely black, and when they moved, it was with a grace that seemed almost liquid. "Humans," one of them said, its voice somehow speaking perfect English despite its alien throat. "I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Collective. You will follow." There was no warmth in the greeting, no attempt at friendship. Jake felt his heart sink, but he kept his face calm. "I am Ambassador Jake Morrison, representing Earth and all humanity. We are honored to meet you." Commander Veltar's head tilted slightly, as if Jake had said something amusing. "Honor, yes, you will understand honor soon enough. Come." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps and alien writing. Other Zephyrians moved past them, paying no attention to the humans. Jake noticed that all of them carried weapons and moved with military precision. Finally, they reached a massive chamber. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness above. At the center of the room stood a platform, and on that platform sat what could only be described as a throne. The being sitting on it was larger than the others, its scales a deeper gold, its presence filling the entire space. "Supreme Commander Veltar," the first alien announced. The human delegation. The Supreme Commander stood slowly, each movement deliberate and threatening. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber. "So these are the humans. The newest species to discover space travel, how ... primitive." Jake stepped forward, fighting to keep his voice steady. "We come in peace, seeking friendship and understanding between our peoples." The Supreme Commander's laugh was like breaking glass. "Peace, friendship, these are concepts for equals, human. You are not our equals. You are barely evolved beyond your animal state." Dr. Johnson whispered urgently to Jake, "The readings I'm getting, their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Maybe thousands of years." The Supreme Commander's hearing was apparently much better than human. "Thousands? Child, we have been masters of the galaxy for millions of your years. We have conquered 647 worlds. We have enslaved 213 different species. And now we have found you." Captain Hayes stepped forward, her military training overcoming her fear. "What do you want from us?" "Want?" The Supreme Commander seemed genuinely surprised. "By the question, we want nothing from you. We take what we require. What we require is your submission." The chamber filled with new sounds. Screens descended from the ceiling, showing images that made Jake's blood run cold. Planets burning, cities destroyed. Beings that looked nothing like humans or Zephyrians but were clearly intelligent, being forced into chains. "These are the worlds that chose to resist," the Supreme Commander continued. This is what happens to species that do not understand their place in the natural order. The strong rule, the weak serve. This is the law of the universe. We are not weak, Captain, Hayes said, though her voice shook slightly. No? The Supreme Commander gestured, and new images appeared. Earth, seen from space, looking beautiful and blue and terribly fragile. Then the view pulled back, showing the Zephyrian fleet surrounding it. Thousands of ships, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities. Your entire military force consists of 200 ships, the Supreme Commander said. Primitive vessels that would be destroyed by a single one of our fighters. We have brought 50,000 ships to your system. This is not even a small portion of our full fleet. Jake felt the weight of those numbers. 200 against 50,000. It was impossible. You have 30 of your days to decide, the Supreme Commander announced. Submit to Zephyrian rule? Accept your place as servants to your betters, and your species will be allowed to continue existing. Refuse, and you will join these others in extinction. More images flashed across the screens. Dead worlds. Empty space where planets used to be. The message was clear. We need time to consider, Jake said, trying to buy any advantage he could. Time? The Supreme Commander's voice was mocking. Very well, 30 days, but know this, humans. We have given this choice to others before you. Some submitted immediately and now serve faithfully in our empire. Others chose to fight. The images changed again, showing different alien species. Some were clearly slaves, working in mines or building ships. Others were nothing but bones and ash. Choose wisely, the Supreme Commander said. Your species' future depends on it. The meeting was over. The same guards who had brought them now led them back to their shuttle. None of the humans spoke until they were safely inside their own ship and heading back to Earth. 50,000 ships, Captain, Hayes said quietly. Even if every one of our ships performed perfectly, even if we had the best luck possible, we'd lose, Jake finished. Badly. Dr. Johnson was studying her readings again. Their technology is incredible. I've never seen anything like it. They're not just ahead of us. They're so far ahead that we might as well be throwing rocks at them. The trip back to Earth felt like the longest journey of Jake's life. He stared out at the stars, wondering if he was looking at them for the last time. In 30 days, humanity would have to make a choice that would determine whether they lived as slaves or died as free beings, as Earth grew larger in the window. Jake made his own choice. He would present the facts to the leaders of Earth, but he already knew what his recommendation would be. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and survived. They had fought when fighting seemed hopeless and won when victory seemed impossible. 30 days. It wasn't much time to prepare for the most important decision in human history. But it would have to be enough. The shuttle docked at Earth's main space station, and Jake Morrison stepped out to face the future of his species. Behind him, the alien fleet waited in the darkness, patient as death itself. Ahead of him lay the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced. The choice was coming, and Jake already knew what it would be. The emergency meeting had been going on for 18 hours. President Don Carter sat at the head of the long table, looking at the faces of Earth's most important leaders. Everyone looked tired, scared, and angry all at the same time. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, said General Kevin Ross, his voice heavy with exhaustion. They have 50,000 ships. We have 200. They want us to become their slaves, or they will destroy every human being alive. Jake Morrison nodded grimly. That's exactly right, General. And they've done this before, hundreds of times. Admiral Amy Stone leaned forward. What about their technology? Can we learn anything that might help us? Dr. Mary Johnson shook her head. I've been studying the readings from our visit. Their technology is so advanced that I can barely understand what I'm looking at. It's like comparing a stone knife to a laser cannon. There has to be something, Captain Lisa Hayes said. Some weakness? Some way to fight back? Fight back? General Ross laughed bitterly. Lisa, I've been in the military for 30 years. I've never seen odds this bad. This isn't even a war. This is just execution. President Carter had been quiet for most of the meeting, but now he spoke. What about evacuation? Could we get some people off Earth? Save part of the human race? Where would we go? Admiral Stone asked. They control the galaxy. Even if we could build ships fast enough, which we can't, they'd just hunt us down. Jake looked around the table. There is one more thing. Dr. Tony Blake from the Prometheus Project has been trying to get a meeting with us. He says he might have something that could help. Blake? General Ross frowned. That's classified above my level. I didn't even know he was still alive. President Carter pressed a button on the table. Send Dr. Blake in. The man who entered the room looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dr. Tony Blake was thin and pale, with wild hair and eyes that seemed to see too much. He carried a small device that hummed quietly. Mr. President, Blake said, his voice shaking slightly. I've been working on something for the past 5 years, something that might give us a chance. What kind of chance? Admiral Stone asked. Blake sat down and placed his device on the table. Have you ever heard of quantum entanglement? It's when two particles become connected in such a way that changing one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. Dr. Johnson leaned forward. I know the theory. But what does that have to do with fighting aliens? Everything, Blake said. We found a way to weaponize it. Not to destroy ships, but to disrupt their communication systems. If we can break their ability to coordinate their fleet, we might have a chance. General Ross shook his head. Even if their ships can't talk to each other, they still have 50,000 ships. We still have 200. But they fight as one big fleet? Captain Hayes said slowly. If they can't coordinate ... Exactly, Blake said. A coordinated fleet of 50,000 ships is almost impossible to defeat. But 50,000 individual ships, all confused and fighting separately, that's different. President Carter stared at the device. How long would it take to build this weapon? It's already built, Blake said. We've been working on it for years, hidden inside the moon. The problem is power. We need massive amounts of energy to make it work on a galactic scale. How much power? Admiral Stone asked. Every nuclear reactor on Earth, plus the fusion plants, plus the solar collectors, everything we have. The room fell silent. Finally, President Carter spoke. If we do this and it doesn't work, we'll have used up all our power. We'll be defenseless. Sir, Blake said quietly, if we don't do this, we'll be slaves or dead anyway. Jake looked around the table. There's something else to consider. The message we send to the galaxy. If we submit, every other species out there will know that resistance is hopeless. If we fight, even if we lose, we show them that freedom is worth dying for. And if we win? Captain Hayes asked. If we win, Blake said, we might be able to free everyone else they've enslaved. The debate went on for hours. Some wanted to try, negotiating for better terms. Others wanted to surrender immediately to save human lives. But slowly, a consensus began to form. All right, President Carter said finally, we fight. God help us, we fight. The next 25 days were the most intense in human history. Every factory on Earth was converted to building weapons and ships. Dr. Blake worked around the clock with his team, including engineer Paul Chun and physicist Dr. Mary Johnson, to prepare the quantum weapon. Meanwhile, the Zephyrian fleet waited in Earth's outer solar system. They sent occasional messages reminding humanity of their deadline and showing more images of destroyed worlds. But they seemed confident. They had seen this before. Colonel Rick Martinez organized civilian evacuation to underground bunkers. We're not going to make this easy for them, he told his teams. If they want to conquer Earth, they're going to have to work for it. On the space stations, pilots like Lieutenant Sam Rivers and Captain Nicole Grant trained constantly. They knew their chances were almost zero, but they trained anyway. Every human fighter pilot would need to be perfect. Captain Hayes spent her time studying the recordings from the alien ship. There has to be something, she muttered, watching the footage for the 100th time. Some weakness we're missing. Dr. Blake and his team worked in shifts, never stopping. The quantum weapon was incredibly complex, requiring precise calculations and perfect timing. One mistake would mean failure. The entanglement matrix is stable, Paul Chun reported. But the power requirements are even higher than we thought. We'll make it work, Blake said. We have to. On the 29th day, the final preparations were complete. The quantum weapon was ready. Earth's small fleet was positioned throughout the solar system. The bunkers were full of civilians. Everyone was as ready as they could be. That evening, President Carter addressed the world. Tomorrow we face an enemy unlike any we have ever known. They are stronger than us, more advanced than us, and they have conquered hundreds of worlds. But they have never faced humanity before? They have never faced a species that values freedom more than life itself. Jake Morrison stood beside the president. 30 days ago, they gave us a choice, submit or die. Tomorrow we give them our answer. The transmission was sent not just to Earth, but to the Zephyrian fleet and across the galaxy. It was simple and direct. We choose to fight. The response came within hours. The Zephyrian fleet began moving toward Earth, 50,000 ships, their weapons charging, their crews confident of easy victory. In the underground command center, Dr. Blake made final adjustments to the quantum weapon. Power levels are holding steady. The entanglement field is ready. General Ross looked at the tactical displays. Their lead ships will reach Earth orbit in 6 hours, Admiral Stone nodded. All ships, prepare for battle. This is what we trained for. Captain Hayes strapped herself into her fighter. Around her, 200 other pilots did the same. They were about to face impossible odds, but they were going to face them as free human beings. The battle for Earth's survival was about to begin. The first alien ships appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system like a wave of death. Captain Lisa Hayes watched from the bridge of her command ship as the enemy fleet spread across the darkness. Even knowing the numbers, seeing 50,000 ships with her own eyes was overwhelming. All stations report ready, Lieutenant Sam Rivers said from his position at the communications console. His voice was steady, but Lisa could see his hands shaking slightly. Dr. Blake, what's the status on the quantum weapon? Lisa asked into her headset. From deep inside the moon, Blake's voice crackled back. Power levels are at maximum. The entanglement field is stable. We're ready to activate on your command. Lisa looked at the tactical display. The alien fleet was moving in perfect formation, their ships arranged in precise patterns that spoke of millions of years of military experience. Earth's 200 ships looked pathetically small in comparison. This is Admiral Stone to all ships, came the voice over the communication system. Remember, we're not trying to win a traditional battle. We're trying to survive long enough for the quantum weapon to work. Stay alive, stay mobile, and trust. The plan. The Zephyrian fleet began its attack with a bombardment that lit up the entire solar system. Massive energy beams reached across space, targeting Earth's orbital defenses. The first human installations began exploding in brilliant flashes of light. Captain Nicole Grant led her squadron of fighters in a desperate charge toward the enemy line. Blue Squadron, follow me in. We need to buy time for the weapon to activate. Her small fighters darted between the massive alien vessels, their weapons doing little damage but forcing the Zephyrians to respond. Nicole watched as 2 of her pilots were destroyed in the first few seconds, their ships simply vanishing in balls of fire. They're too strong, she reported. We can't even scratch their armor. On the alien flagship, Supreme Commander Veltar watched the human attack with amusement. These creatures fight like insects, he said to his officers. Brave, perhaps, but ultimately meaningless. His tactical officer, a younger Zephyrian named Sub-Commander Kreldon, studied the displays. Sir, their attack pattern is unusual. They're not trying to destroy our ships. They're just flying around us. The desperate confusion, Veltar replied. They know they cannot win, so they strike without purpose. Continue the bombardment. But down on Earth, Colonel Rick Martinez was watching the battle from his command bunker. It's working, he said to his staff. The aliens are focusing on our fighters. They're not paying attention to the moon. Deep inside the moon, Dr. Blake and his team worked frantically to bring the quantum weapon online. The massive machinery hummed with power, drawing energy from every reactor on Earth. Entanglement matrix is at 90%, reported Paul. Chun, power flow is stable. Quantum field generators are synchronized, added Dr. Mary Johnson. We're almost ready, Blake wiped sweat from his forehead. Remember, we only get one chance at this. If the field collapses, we won't have enough power to try again. Above them, the battle was going badly for humanity. Half of Earth's ships had already been destroyed, and the alien fleet hadn't even reached full combat range yet. Captain Hayes watched as another group of her fighters was wiped out by a single alien weapon. All ships pull back to defensive positions, she ordered. We can't stop them, but we can make them work for every inch. The Zephyrian fleet continued its methodical advance. They had done this hundreds of times before, and they knew exactly how to destroy a planetary defense system. Their ships moved, with perfect coordination, each one supporting the others. Sir, we're detecting some kind of energy buildup from their moon? Sub-Commander Kreldon reported. Supreme Commander Veltar glanced at the reading. Probably their final desperate weapon. It matters little. Nothing they have can affect our fleet. Quantum weapon is ready, Blake announced. Activating in 3.2. Now. The moon seemed to pulse with invisible energy. Deep inside, the quantum entanglement device sent out a wave that traveled faster than light itself. It reached the alien fleet in an instant, passing through their shields as if they didn't exist. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Zephyrian ships continued their attack, their weapons still firing, their formation still perfect. But then the first signs of trouble began to appear. Command ship, this is Battle Group 7. Came a confused voice over the Zephyrian communication system. We're receiving contradictory orders. Please clarify. Battle Group 7, this is Command, came the response. We sent no orders. Maintain current position. But the message that Battle Group 7 received was completely different. The quantum entanglement was scrambling their communications, making each ship hear different things. Sir, we're getting reports of communication problems throughout the fleet, Sub-Commander Kreldon said, his voice worried now. Supreme Commander Veltar frowned. Impossible. Our communication system is quantum encrypted. Nothing can interfere with it. Battle Group 12 reports they're under attack by Battle Group 15, another officer reported. Battle Group 15 says they received orders to fire on Battle Group 12. The perfect Zephyrian formation began to break apart. Ships that had fought together for millennia were suddenly turning on each other, each one receiving different orders, each one believing the others had gone rogue. Captain Hayes watched in amazement as the alien fleet descended into chaos. It's working, she whispered. Blake, you beautiful genius, it's actually working. The quantum weapon was doing more than just scrambling communications. It was affecting the Zephyrian nervous system itself. Their reptilian brains were more sensitive to quantum interference than human brains, and the effect was devastating. On the alien flagship, crew members began staggering, their coordination failing. Simple tasks became impossible as their neural pathways were disrupted by the quantum field. Sir, I can't think straight, Sub-Commander Kreldon said. Holding his head in his hands, Supreme Commander Veltar tried to respond, but his own thoughts were becoming jumbled. The quantum interference was affecting every Zephyrian in the fleet, making them confused, disoriented, and unable to function properly. All human ships, this is Admiral Stone, came the voice over the communication system. The weapon is working. Attack now while they're confused? The remaining human ships charged forward, their weapons targeting the disorganized alien vessels. Ships that had seemed invincible minutes before were now helpless, their crews unable to coordinate their defenses. Lieutenant Sam Rivers led his squadron against a group of alien cruisers. They're not even shooting back, he reported in amazement. Their weapons are offline. Captain Nicole Grant, who had survived the first attack, found herself facing a massive alien battleship. Its crew was so confused that they couldn't even keep their shields up. This is incredible, she said. They're completely helpless. The quantum weapon continued to spread its effects throughout the alien fleet. Ships began colliding with each Other as their pilots lost the ability to navigate properly. Others simply shut down completely, their crews unable to operate the controls. On the flagship, Supreme Commander Veltar struggled to maintain consciousness. The quantum interference was affecting him more severely than the others, perhaps because of his stronger neural implants. "Retreat," he managed to say. "All ships ... retreat." But the order never reached the fleet. The communication system was completely compromised, and most of the ship commanders were too confused to function anyway. The tide of battle had turned completely. In the space of minutes, the most powerful fleet in galactic history had been reduced to a confused, helpless mob. And humanity was just getting started? The remaining Zephyrian ships fled from Earth's solar system in complete disorder. What had been a perfectly coordinated fleet was now scattered groups of confused vessels, each one trying to escape the quantum field that had destroyed their ability to function as a unit. Captain Lisa Hayes watched from her command ship as the alien fleet retreated. "This is our chance," she said to her officers. "We can't let them regroup and figure out how to counter the weapon." President Dan Carter's voice came over the communication system from Earth. "Captain Hayes, you're promoted to Admiral. I'm authorizing Operation Retribution. Hunt them down." Admiral Stone, who had been wounded in the battle, managed a weak smile. From her hospital bed, "Lisa, take my flagship. Show them what happens when they threaten humanity." The quantum weapon had done more than just disrupt the Zephyrian fleet. It had revealed the locations of their key worlds and supply bases through the intercepted communications. Dr. Blake and his team worked quickly to analyze the data. "We have star maps, supply routes, even the locations of their homeworlds," Blake reported. The quantum field copied everything from their computer systems before scrambling them. Admiral Hayes assembled a strike force of the fastest human ships. The quantum disruption technology was quickly installed on smaller vessels that could move between star systems rapidly. Captain Joe Parker and Commander Linda Clark were chosen to lead the first attack squadrons. "Remember," Hayes told her commanders, "we're not just fighting for Earth anymore. Every world they've enslaved is counting on us. We're going to free them all." The first target was a Zephyrian supply depot 3 star systems away. Captain Parker's squadron arrived to find the alien base in complete chaos. The quantum field had affected every Zephyrian in the facility, leaving them unable to coordinate their defenses. "This is almost too easy," Parker reported as his ships destroyed the supply depot without resistance. "They can't even figure out how to turn on their weapons." But the real surprise came when the human ships landed on the depot's main planet. The surface was covered with prison camps holding thousands of beings from dozens of different species. All of them had been slaves of the Zephyrian Empire. Lieutenant Colonel Matt Thompson led the ground forces that freed the prisoners. "We're from Earth," he told the confused aliens. "We're here to help you." A tall, blue-skinned being who had been a slave for 30 years stared at Thompson in disbelief. "You defeated the Zephyrians? But they are the masters of the galaxy. No one can defeat them." "We just did," Thompson replied. "And we're going to keep doing it until every one of their slaves is free." Word of the human victory spread quickly through the galaxy. On world after world, enslaved species began to rise up against their Zephyrian overlords. The empire that had seemed invincible was suddenly fighting rebellions on hundreds of planets. Commander Veltar, who had managed to escape from Earth with a small group of ships, found himself being hunted across his own empire. The quantum weapon had permanently damaged his nervous system, leaving him weak and confused most of the time. "Sir, we're receiving reports of uprisings on 47 worlds," his remaining tactical officer reported. "The humans are supporting the rebels with weapons and training." Veltar tried to focus his damaged mind on the problem. "How many ships do we have left?" "Less than 1,000, sir. Most of the fleet is either destroyed or scattered. The crews that survived are too affected by the quantum weapon to fight effectively." The human strike force continued its campaign across the galaxy. Admiral Hayes had divided her ships into small, fast-moving groups that could hit multiple targets simultaneously. The quantum disruption technology gave them a massive advantage against any Zephyrian forces they encountered. Captain Nicole Grant, who had survived the battle at Earth, now led a squadron that specialized in liberating prison worlds. "We freed over 2 million slaves so far," she reported, "and each group we free joins the fight against the Zephyrians." The psychological impact on the Zephyrian Empire was devastating. A species that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years was suddenly being hunted by the very beings they had planned to enslave. Their own subjects were turning against them. Inspired by humanity's example on the Zephyrian homeworld, panic was spreading through the population. The quantum weapons' effects had reached even there, causing confusion and fear among civilians who had never known defeat. "The humans are coming," people whispered in the streets. "The slaves have become the masters." Dr. Blake continued to refine the quantum weapon from his base on Earth's moon. "We can extend the range even further," he told Admiral Hayes during one of their regular communications. "Soon we'll be able to affect their entire home system." The freed slaves proved to be humanity's most valuable allies. They knew the Zephyrian Empire's weaknesses, its secret bases, and its hidden resources. Lieutenant Colonel Thompson worked with leaders from dozens of species to coordinate attacks. "The Zephyrians have a weakness," explained a former slave who had been an engineer. "Their entire military system depends on perfect coordination. Without it, they're no more dangerous than any other species." The human forces learned to use captured Zephyrian weapons in ships. Engineer Paul Chun worked with alien scientists to understand the advanced technology. "It's incredible," he reported. "Once you understand how it works, their tech isn't that complicated. They just had a huge head start." Commander Veltar-S' remaining fleet grew smaller with each battle. His ships were being picked off one by combined human and alien forces. The quantum weapon made it impossible for him to coordinate any effective defense. "Sir, we've lost contact with the home defense fleet," his officer reported. "The humans have reached the outer system." Veltar stared at the tactical display with his damaged eyes. The blue dot representing Earth was now surrounded by green dots showing human ships. But it was the red dots that terrified him. Red dots representing rebel forces were appearing all over the galaxy. "How many rebellions are active now?" he asked. "Over 300, sir. The humans are supporting all of them. They're teaching the rebels how to fight, giving them weapons, even helping them build their own ships." The Zephyrian Empire was collapsing. Worlds that had been enslaved for thousands of years were declaring independence. Supply lines were cut. Military bases were being overrun. The perfect machine of conquest was falling apart. Admiral Hayes received regular reports from across the galaxy. "The Altarian system has declared independence," Captain Parker reported. "The Zephyrian garrison surrendered without a fight." "The Vorthan rebellion has succeeded," added Commander Clark. "They're asking to join our alliance." "The prison world of Kepler 442 has been liberated," reported Captain Grant. 200,000 slaves are now free. Each victory inspired more rebellions. The quantum weapon had given humanity the power to fight the Zephyrians, but it was hope that was destroying their empire. Hope that freedom was possible. Hope that the strong didn't have to rule the weak. Veltar-S' flagship limped through space, pursued by human ships and rebel forces. His once mighty empire was crumbling around him, and there was nowhere left to run. "Sir," his officer said quietly, "we're approaching the home system, but the humans are already there." Veltar looked ahead to see the lights of human ships surrounding his homeworld. The species he had planned to enslave had become his hunters, and now they were at the gates of his own home. The final battle was about to begin. The Zephyrian home system was unlike anything Admiral Lisa Hayes had ever seen. 3 massive planets orbited a golden star, each one covered with gleaming cities that stretched from pole to pole. Billions of Zephyrians lived here, the heart of an empire that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years, but now human ships filled the space around those planets, supported by vessels from dozens of freed species. The quantum weapon had reached this far, and the Zephyrian home defense Fleet floated helplessly in space, their crews too confused to fight. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the surface, reported Lieutenant Sam Rivers from his position at the communications console. Put it through, Hayes ordered. The face that appeared on the screen was that of an elderly Zephyrian, his golden scales dulled with age. I am Elder Council Leader Morthok, he said, his voice shaking. We wish to negotiate. Captain Joe Parker, who was standing beside Hayes, shook his head in amazement. 6 months ago, they were demanding our surrender. Now they want to talk. Hayes studied the alien leader on the screen. What do you want to negotiate about, Elder Morthok? Terms of surrender, the Zephyrian said quietly. We know we cannot win. Your quantum weapon has destroyed our ability to fight as one fleet. Our empire is collapsing. We ask for ... we ask for mercy. The word hung in the air like something foreign. These were the same beings who had shown no mercy to hundreds of worlds, who had enslaved entire species, who had planned to destroy humanity rather than accept resistance. I need to speak with my government, Hayes said. We'll contact you within 1 hour. The communication ended and Hayes immediately contacted Earth. President Dan Carter's face appeared on the screen, along with General Kevin Ross and the other leaders who had planned humanity's desperate defense. They're asking for mercy, Hayes reported. The same mercy they refused to give to anyone else. General Ross looked grim. Admiral, we have the power to destroy their homeworlds completely. After what they've done to other species, maybe we should. No, said a new voice. Dr. Tony Blake appeared on the screen from his laboratory on the moon. If we do that, we become what we fought against. We become conquerors instead of liberators. President Carter nodded slowly. Blake is right. But we can't just let them go back to enslaving other worlds either. What do you suggest, Admiral? Hayes looked out at the Zephyrian planets. We give them mercy, but mercy with conditions. An hour later, Hayes opened communications with the Zephyrian homeworld again. This time, Elder Morthok was joined by other council members, all of them looking defeated and afraid. We will show you the mercy you denied to others, Hayes announced. But there are conditions. First, the Zephyrian Empire must be dissolved completely. No more conquests, no more enslaving other species. Agreed, Morthok said quickly. Second, all remaining slaves must be freed immediately. Every species you've enslaved must be given their independence and the resources to rebuild their worlds. The Zephyrian Council members looked uncomfortable, but Morthok nodded. It will be done. Third, you will pay reparations to every species you've harmed. Your advanced technology, your knowledge, your resources will be used to help repair the damage you've caused. But that will take thousands of years, protested one of the council members. You had millions of years to enslave the galaxy, Hayes replied coldly. You can spend thousands of years making up for it. The final condition was the most important. Fourth, you will join a new galactic alliance, not as rulers but as equals. Every species will have a voice. Every world will have the right to govern itself. Elder Morthok was quiet for a long moment. And if we refuse these conditions? Hayes gestured to the human ships surrounding the planets. Then you face the consequences of your choices. We have the power to destroy your worlds, just as you destroyed others, but we're giving you the chance to do better. We accept, Morthok said quietly. The formal surrender took place on the largest Zephyrian planet. Commander Veltar, his mind still damaged by the quantum weapon, was brought to sign the documents that ended his empire. He looked at Admiral Hayes with confusion and fear. I don't understand, he said, his voice weak. You have the power to destroy us completely. Why? Don't you? Hayes looked at the broken alien commander. Because that's what makes us different from you. We fight for freedom, not conquest. We show mercy, even to those who showed none. Veltar stared at her for a long moment. We were wrong about your species, he said finally. You are not weak. You are stronger than we ever were. The transformation of the galaxy began immediately. Captain Nicole Grant led teams that freed the last of the slave worlds. Lieutenant Colonel Matt Thompson, helped former slaves build new governments and armies to defend themselves. Dr. Blake's quantum technology was shared freely with all species, ensuring that no single empire could ever again dominate the galaxy. Through superior communication and coordination, the freed worlds were amazed by humanity's approach. "You could rule us all," said the leader of the Altarian people. "Your technology gives you that power, why don't you?" Ambassador Jake Morrison, who had been present at humanity's first meeting with the Zephyrians, smiled. "Because ruling others was never our goal. Freedom was our goal. Freedom for everyone." The new Galactic Alliance was established with Earth as its first capital, but power was shared equally among all member species. Every world had the right to govern itself, and decisions affecting the galaxy were made by representatives from hundreds of different civilizations. The Zephyrians, to their credit, worked hard to fulfill their obligations. Their advanced technology helped rebuild worlds they had destroyed. Their knowledge helped former slave species develop their own defenses. Slowly, they began to earn a place in the new galaxy. Elder Morthak, now much older, met with Admiral Hayes years later. "Your species has changed the galaxy forever," he told her. "Not through conquest, but through example. We just showed everyone that freedom is possible," Hayes replied. "They did the rest themselves." The quantum weapon became a symbol of hope throughout the galaxy. Not because it was a weapon of destruction, but because it had broken the chains that held entire civilizations in slavery. Dr. Blake, now an old man, often looked up at the stars from his home on Earth. The galaxy was full of free worlds, each one developing its own culture and technology. The age of empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun. Commander Veltar, his mind slowly healing over the years, became an advocate for peace among his own people. "Humanity taught us that strength comes from lifting others up, not holding them down," he would tell young Zephyrians. "We spent millions of years as conquerors and gained nothing but fear. They spent a few decades as liberators and gained the respect of the galaxy." The story of humanity's victory spread to every corner of the galaxy. It became a legend told by parents to their children, a reminder that even the smallest and weakest could triumph over tyranny if they had courage and refused to surrender their principles. Years later, when new species were discovered at the edge of the galaxy, they were welcomed as equals, not conquered as slaves. The Galactic Alliance grew stronger with each new member, each new voice, each new perspective. Humanity had faced the choice between submission and destruction, and they had chosen a third option, liberation. Not just for themselves, but for everyone. They had wanted humanity to submit, but in the end, it was tyranny itself that begged for mercy, and mercy, tempered with justice, was exactly what they received.